The Confession of Théodule Sabot, Guide to Maupassan. The moment Théodule Sabot stepped over the threshold of the Martinville Tavern, the company within would invariably be stirred to merry laughter. Ah, yes, this Sabot was a rogue of the first order, a master at getting a laugh, that's for certain. Take the clergy, how he detested them. And detested is too mild a word. The fellow simply devoured them with his biting sarcasm. Théodule Sabot, a carpenter by trade, was aligned with the Progressive Party in Martinville. A tall, gaunt man, with hair slicked down at the temples, a sullen look in his gray eyes, and thin, tightly pressed lips. He would sometimes say, with an inimitable air, "Our Holy Father, the old drunk," and everyone present would be doubled over with laughter, holding their sides. He made it a point of principle to work during Sunday Mass, and every year on Easter Monday he would slaughter a pig, so he could feast on sausage right up until Easter itself. And if he caught sight of a priest on the street, he never missed an opportunity to sneer after him. Take a look. There's a man who's just taken communion with his Lord God over the counter of a pub. The priest, a very tall man himself and portly to boot, was somewhat afraid of the carpenter's jibes, which found a receptive audience with many. Abbé Maritim was a subtle politician, a devotee of all manner of diplomatic maneuvers, and so, for a good 10 years, a continuous, bitter, though hidden struggle had been waging between the carpenter and the abbé. Sabot sat on the municipal council. He was tipped to become mayor. Were he to gain that office, it would inevitably lead to the total defeat of the church party. The elections were drawing near. The camp of Martinville's clericals was quivering with anxiety. Then, one morning, the curé set off for Rouen, telling his housemaid he was going to see the archbishop. He returned 2 days later, beaming, with a victorious air. And the next morning, all of Martinville learned that the church choir stalls were to be refurbished. His Grace, it was said, had granted 600 francs from his private funds for this good work. All the old pine pews were to be broken up and replaced with new ones, made of solid oak. It went without saying, a prestigious commission for any carpenter. That evening, all anyone in Martinville could talk about was this job. Théodule Sabot wasn't laughing anymore. When he walked through the village the next morning, all his neighbors, friends and foes alike, teased him. "What's the matter? Hoping to get the job for the church choir, are you?" He couldn't find a word to say in reply, and merely seethed in silence, seethed terribly. And some joker would invariably add, "Not a bad little job, that. A clear 200 or 300 francs profit, at the very least." A couple of days later, everyone heard that the commission was to be given to Celestin Chambrelin, the carpenter from Parcheville. Then this rumor was denied. Next, a new whisper spread. Apparently, all the pews for the congregation were to be remade as well. This would cost 2,000 francs, and a petition had already been sent to the ministry. Feelings were running high. Théodule Sabot lost all peace. From time immemorial, no carpenter from Martinville had ever been awarded such a lucrative contract. Then a new rumor began to crawl about. It was whispered that the curé was actually quite reluctant to give the work to an outsider, but he couldn't possibly entrust it to Sabot because of the carpenter's free-thinking beliefs. This rumor reached Sabot himself, and so, as evening twilight fell, he made his way to the curé's house. The maid said the father was at the church. He went there. There, under the priest's supervision, 2 pious old spinsters, who had devoted themselves to the service of the Blessed Virgin, were decorating the altar for the month of Mary. The curé was standing in the choir, his considerable belly thrust forward, giving instructions to the women who, perched on chairs, were adorning the tabernacle with flowers. Sabot felt intensely awkward, as if he had entered the house of his bitterest enemy. Yet he was driven on by a craving to secure the profitable commission. Holding his cap in his hands, he approached, paying no mind to the women, who had frozen on their chairs, dumbstruck with astonishment. "Good day, Monsieur le Curé," Sabot muttered. "Good day, Monsieur le Carpenter," replied the priest, without even looking at him, utterly absorbed in his contemplation of the altar. Disconcerted, Sabot didn't know how to begin. After a silence, he asked, "You are, I see, making preparations?" "Yes, the month of Mary is approaching," answered Abbé Maritim. I see," said Sabot, and fell silent again. He was on the verge of leaving, having said nothing of consequence, but, casting a glance towards the choir stalls, he changed his mind. He counted a full 16 seats that needed remaking, 6 to the right of the door, 8 to the left, and 2 by the sacristy door. 16 oak seats. The materials would cost, at most, 300 francs, and if he managed the work shrewdly, he could clear a good 200, and he forced the words out with difficulty. "I have come about the work." The curé put on a surprised face. "About what work?" he asked. Sabot was completely flustered. "Well, the work for which you require a carpenter." The priest turned and looked him straight in the eye. "You cannot possibly be referring to the repair of the choir stalls in my church." His tone was such that a shiver ran down Théodule Sabot's spine, and he again felt the urge to beat a retreat. Nevertheless, he replied meekly, "That is precisely it, Monsieur le Curé." The abbé folded his hands over his imposing stomach and seemed petrified with astonishment. "And you are saying this to me? You, Sabot, the only atheist in my parish? But if I entrust this work to you, it will cause a universal scandal. His Grace would reprimand me severely, and might even remove me from my post altogether." He caught his breath and continued in a calmer tone. "Naturally, I understand your chagrin at seeing such an important commission go to a carpenter from another parish. But I have no choice. If only, but no, it's impossible. You wouldn't agree to it in any case. Otherwise, no, it cannot be done." Meanwhile, Sabot was studying the long row of pews stretching almost to the very exit. Good heavens, what if all of those were to be replaced as well? And yet, he asked, what exactly is required for this? The priest stated firmly, "I need to receive clear proof of your piety." "Well now, I've no particular objection. Perhaps we can still come to an agreement," muttered Sabot. The curé explained, "This coming Sunday, during High Mass, you must take communion in full view of the entire congregation." The carpenter felt himself grow pale and, without replying directly, asked, "And the congregation's pews, will they be remade too?" "Yes, but somewhat later," answered the abbé. "Very well then, I agree, Sabot rattled off. "I've never been an out-and-out renegade, you know. I've nothing against religion itself. It's just the rituals that aren't to my taste. But given the circumstances, I am ready." The handmaidens of the Blessed Virgin had climbed down from their chairs and, concealed behind the altar, were listening to the conversation, pale with excitement. The curé, sensing his victory was complete, suddenly became genial and affable. "Well now, that's splendid, that's excellent. It's a pleasure to hear such reasonable talk. That's what it means to approach a matter with good sense. Never mind, everything will be arranged." Sabot gave an embarrassed grin and asked, "And would it be possible to postpone this communion a little?" The priest frowned again. "In entrusting you with this work, I must be absolutely certain of your conversion to the true path." Then, softening, he added, "Come to confession tomorrow. You will need to undergo the trial at least twice." "Twice?" Sabot repeated. Indeed, the cure permitted himself a smile. "You require a complete cleansing, a thorough scrubbing, so to speak. So I shall expect you tomorrow." Thoroughly alarmed, the carpenter inquired, "And where will you be conducting this?" "Where?" "In the confessional, of course." "In that box over there, in the corner?" "Oh, no, that won't do for me." "Why not?" "Because I'm not used to it, and my hearing isn't what it used to be." The cure good-naturedly accommodated him. "Very well, then come to my house. We shall arrange it face to face in private. Does that suit you?" "That's a different matter entirely." "But her box, no." "Well then, until tomorrow. Come when you finish work, around 6 o'clock. "Settled. So be it." "Goodbye, Monsieur le Cure. A promise made is a promise kept. Only cowards turn back." The carpenter extended his calloused paw to the priest, who slapped it briskly. The smack echoed loudly under the church vaults and gradually faded away somewhere on high, beyond the organ pipes. Sabot spent the entire next day in a state of extreme agitation. He was possessed by an unreasoning fear, akin to what grips a man facing a tooth extraction. The obsessive thought pursued him relentlessly. Tonight, confession. His troubled soul, the soul of a not fully convinced atheist, shuddered with a vague and overwhelming horror of the divine mystery. No sooner had he finished work than he set off for the priest's house. The cure was already waiting for him, strolling along the garden path with a prayer book in his hands. Seeing Sabot, he beamed and, laughing heartily, went to meet him. "Ah, here you are. Come in, Monsieur Sabot. I assure you, no one is going to eat you here." Sabot was the first to cross the threshold of the house. "If you don't mind, I'd like to get this business over with as quickly as possible," he muttered. "At your service. One moment. Let me just put on my surplice, and I am ready," replied the priest. The carpenter, from agitation, could scarcely think straight. He stared bewildered at the cure, who was robing himself in a snow-white garment with carefully ironed folds. Finally, the priest motioned to him with his hand, "Kneel upon this cushion." Sabot did not move from the spot. He felt awkward about kneeling. "Isn't there some other way?" he ventured. The abbé suddenly assumed a solemn air. "You have appeared before the tribunal of the Lord, and it is fitting for you to kneel." Sabot sank to his knees. "Recite the Confiteor," commanded the cure. "I beg your pardon?" "The Confiteor. If you have forgotten it, repeat after me, word for word." And the priest, slowly, enunciating each word, began to recite the prayer, which the carpenter obediently repeated. Having finished, he announced, "Now proceed with your confession." Sabot remained silent, not knowing where to begin. Abbé Maritim hastened to his aid. "My son," he said, "you are evidently unversed in this matter. I will ask you questions. I shall now begin reciting the commandments of the Lord in order. Listen attentively and do not be nervous. Speak boldly. Do not fear being overly frank. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Tell me, is the Lord God dearer to you than all else in the world? Do you love him with all your soul, with all your heart, with all your mind?" Sabot broke into a sweat from the strain. "No, oh no, Monsieur le Cure," he finally burst out. "I love the Lord God as best I can. That much is true. I love him very much indeed. But that I should place him above my own children? No, that cannot be. That the Lord God should be dearer to me than the kids? Well, no. Or that I should throw away 100 francs for his sake. That won't happen either. But still, I do love him, upon my word. I love him deeply. One must love God above all else in the world, the priest uttered sternly. Sabot, filled with good intentions, promised, I will try, Monsieur le Curé. Abbé Maritim continued, Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Have you ever sworn an oath? No, whatever do you mean? Never sworn in my life, unless perhaps exclaiming in the heat of the moment, O Lord God. But otherwise, never. But that is taking the Lord's name in vain, exclaimed the priest. And, looking sternly, he added, Do not do so again. Let us continue. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. What do you do on Sundays? Sabot scratched the back of his head. I zealously serve the Lord God. Monsieur le Curé, I serve him in my own way at home. On Sunday, I work from morning till night. The curé stopped him indulgently. All right, I hope henceforth you will be more pious. So, let us skip 3 commandments. I am sure you have not broken them. Let us move to the 6th and the 9th. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not steal. Have you ever appropriated what belonged to another? Here, Théodule Sabot was sincerely indignant. No, that, not in the slightest. I am an honest man, Monsieur le Curé. I can swear to it. True, I've sometimes charged a wealthy client for an extra 2 or 3 hours of work. Where's the harm in that? Why not add a few extra centimes to the bill? After all, it's a mere trifle. But to steal, never. That has never happened. The curé spoke instructively. To appropriate even a single centime is already to commit a theft. Do not do so again. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Have you ever told lies? No, I am not one of those. I am no liar, though I may have boasted a little on occasion. That has happened. Sometimes, if there's an advantage to be had, one might say something that isn't strictly true. Such things have occurred. But to lie outright, no, I have not been a liar. Refrain from doing so in the future, said the priest. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Have you ever desired another woman besides your wife? Sabot exclaimed with complete sincerity. No, that most certainly has not happened, Monsieur le Curé. Never. That I should deceive my poor wife. Not for anything. I swear to God. I have never been unfaithful to her, not in deed, nor even in my thoughts. The absolute truth. He fell silent for a moment. Then, lowering his voice as if wrestling with inner embarrassment, added, Except that, when I'm in the city, I sometimes visit that house. Well, you understand, that sort of establishment. But that's just for fun, a bit of sport, to amuse myself a little. But I pay. I pay faithfully every time, Monsieur le Curé. One pays, and that's the end of it, and no one's the wiser. The curé did not inquire further and granted him absolution. Théodule Sabot received the commission to repair the church choir stalls, and from that time forward has taken communion regularly every month. Ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Share your impressions and thoughts in the comments. I'll be glad to chat with you.